Good evening and welcome to another edition of Capital Market Live on Channels Television, where the market speaks and we analyze. I'm Laddie Williams, and yes, it's been quite the week for most of the markets that we track. Whatever asset class you're talking about, it's been quite a turbulent week for most of these asset classes, starting off strong and some ending off quite weak, and whilst some started strong and ended up weak in the week. But let's get a check now what's played out with global markets that we track. European stocks, they closed sharply lower on Friday as concerns about artificial intelligence bubble. A lot of talk about that these days. And the global economy, that shook investor confidence. The pan-European stock 600 ended the session more than 1% down, with all of the region's major bourses closing sharply lower. The original Stocks Technology Index fell 1.4%, tracking losses on Wall Street the previous day. And I saw big tech stocks battered in a broad sell-off. That's what played out in Europe. To Asia markets now, Asia Pacific markets, they also slid on Friday, tracking losses on Wall Street as technology stocks continue to come under pressure. And Fed rate cuts doubts that swirled in the markets. Japan's benchmark Nikkei 225 index lost by 1.77% to close at 50,376 points, while the TOPIX, that's the 0.65% to end the trading day at 3,359 points. Japanese giant SoftBank plunged nearly 9% in early trading, marking its third consecutive day of decline. As I said on Tuesday, it had sold its entire stake in NVIDIA. Shares of the conglomerate closed 6.57% lower. So we see the color there for the Hang Seng. That was in the green, 1.85% as close on Friday. And we'll see to the U.S. markets now. The NASDAQ Composite rebounded on Friday as investors bought up shares of key technology stocks the day after the group led Wall Street to its worst day in more than a month. The tech-heavy NASDAQ gained 0.13%, finished at 22,900 points, while the S&P 500, that closed at 6,734 points, down about 5 basis points. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, 47,147 points at 0.65% up. So that was the major plays there for the markets that we tracked. The three indexes bounced back significantly from the lows early in the day, which had the NASDAQ and S&P 500 down about 1.9%. We also saw Bitcoin was down a lot also this week, tracking the tech sell-offs that we saw in major indexes that we track. All right, we also see bringing it back home now, the NASD securities closed the week lower as the index fell by 1.31%. Market cap stood at 2.16 trillion. Trading activity was positive. Volume was up by 28.10% to 3.91 billion units. Value was 772% up to 11.13 billion. And total deals, that was up, closing at 103 trades, up 11%. On price performance, Afriland Properties PLC, Central Securities Clearance System PLC, NASD PLC were the gainers. Losers were led by Double One PLC, which fell 8.33% to 360 naira. On the activity chart, the most traded securities for the week, that was Double One PLC, Acorn Petroleum PLC, and Afriland Properties PLC. That was the play right there in the unlisted market. Now take it to the NGX. The Nigerian exchange closed the week on a negative note as the all-share index declined 1.68% to settle at 147,013 points. Market capitalization 93.50 trillion naira. In terms of activity, investors exchanged 7.32 billion units of shares. A green close in volume. The market value was up by 156.4 billion, while total deals was down 134,000 trades, closing in the red. So that was, it was quite a week there for the NGX. Started off first two trading days, big losses. Then for the final trading days, all in the green, but still could not get a positive close right there for the market. All right. For our DSTV viewers, we're going to be joining live coverage now for the elective national convention of the People's Democratic Party venues at Adamasimba Stadium, Ibadan, or your state, right there. So you can keep following the money on other platforms. That's for our DSTV viewers right there. All right, let's get a check now on major happenings in stock markets this week, and basically the whole of the capital market. We see Nairametrics, they unveiled the maiden NMX 100 index, a first of its kind data-driven ranking of Nigeria's largest companies by revenue, offering most transparent and comprehensive snapshot yet of the corporates powering Africa's biggest economy. Modeled after global benchmarks like the Fortune 500, the new index aims to reshape economic intelligence and close long-standing gaps in Nigeria's corporate data landscape. According to Nairametrics founder and CEO Ugodre Obichukwu, take a listen.
When we started tracking deals a few years ago, at that time, we're trying to figure out how much, because we noticed that when you have capital importation, like we all track, when MBS releases capital importation, the numbers most times don't tie with what we hear startups are raising. You hear Flutter will raise 100 million. You hear, when you check capital importation, you notice that there's a disconnect. So we realized, okay, capital importation tracks only the money that actually came into Nigeria. Now, let me give you context. Imagine maybe Flutterwave or Lemfi or any of these guys raised $20 million and they announced it. Now, what tends to happen is that $20 million will be paid into an account in the US, maybe their account in their US company or UK company. So it didn't come into Nigeria. But you know they spend that money in Nigeria, because what will happen is that they will now send that money to somebody else. That person will now give them the Naira equivalent in Nigeria. They will start spending. So one way or the other, that investment actually came in, but the CBN will not capture it. And so that's why sometimes we ask ourselves, people are hungry, no money, but there's more people are still spending money, because the mechanism for how we capture fund flows needs to change, because a lot of things are, a lot of the way this money flows is not the straightforward way.
All right, I guess we'll start tracking the NMX 100 index once it goes live there. All right, to other top stories this week. Nigeria's finance minister, I don't know if this is why the markets recovered strongly this week, after Wale Edu had reassured investors of a balanced approach to the proposed capital gains tax as the Nigerian exchange celebrated the listing of the Ministry of Finance Incorporated Real Estate Investment Fund Series 2. Speaking at the closing gong ceremony, Edu highlighted the capital market's crucial role in addressing the country's housing deficit, while analysts noted that aligning fiscal policy with investor expectations remains key to sustaining market confidence amid ongoing geopolitical tensions and portfolio adjustments. Take a listen.
The tax and fiscal policy of Bonkodia done its job, presented the bill. The National Assembly has done its job. It has passed the act into law, and it is now left to the fiscal authorities, left to the Ministry of Finance and its implementation committee to carefully and efficiently implement the law. We have heard what you have said on capital gains tax. We are looking at it, and we will confirm. We will confirm in the way that gives Nigeria an optimum result.
All right, so definitely a lot played out this week. So we're gonna try and unpack, some of them, and also get a sense of what's played out in the NASD listed market. And joining us for this conversation, we have Mr. Waride Longa, the Managing Director and CEO of NASD PLC, joining me right here in the studio. It's great to have you on the show, sir. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for spending your weekend with us here. And I'm sure you also saw what played out this week with the major sell-offs.
Yes.
In I think the NASD closed the week in the red.
Yes.
This week.
Yes.
The NGX also closed in the red, and this was for the NGX started off quite low.
Yes.
Monday, Tuesday, big sell-offs.
Yes.
Then after we got the reassurance from the finance minister, it seems everything became rosy again.
Yes.
For most of these markets. Do you think the markets overreacted to this capital gains tax?
Most definitely. I mean, I guess the tax laws are still a gray area for many people. And fortunately for us in the, I would say the stockbroking community, we had a session with the chairman of the task force. Is it a task force or committee?
A committee.
Yeah. Mr. Oyedele.
Right.
And he told us, he schooled
also
us.
a task force too, presidential task force.
Yes, presidential task force.
Right.
He schooled us on what the capital gains tax stands for. And it's actually disabused our minds on many of the presentiments that we had. So I think that the challenge is that you'd have to speak to every Nigerian or every investor about this, because people are simply running scared, and they want to pull the trigger before that, everything
January,
starts
right,
on
2026.
1st of January 2026. They don't want to be caught napping, But the capital gains tax, I think, as he's explained it to us, is quite positive. It's actually capital gains tax in reality. So if you're going to trade and reinvest your money, then you don't pay capital gains, right? And then the threshold is pretty high, from 150 million. Well, I'd say pretty high to a certain degree. So it's simply trying to encourage reinvestment, But people have complained also about the rate, which is 30%. So I think that there should be a bit more education and awareness creation on this, And I think more importantly, we need to speak with our investor base in the DFIs and the FDI so that they realize what exactly is happening.
Right, and talking about the limit there for over 150 million.
Yes.
If that's what you're transacting and taking out.
No, 150 million capital gains.
Capital gains.
Yes.
And if you're taking that out of the market, well, if you're putting it into another stock,
yes,
you're fine.
You're fine.
According to.
You're fine. So you then create a higher base. So you can actually, what's the word? You can actually revolve your investing such that you don't have to pay capital gains. But the good thing about what the promotion that this does is for investing and creating value in the Nigerian economy.
Right.
So I think there's some smart things around this tax law that we just need to take a chill pill,
right,
and review very carefully.
Well, let's not rush. Let's understand it.
Let's understand it, and let's not say that we have a tax collector as president. So that's his mainstay. Let's be calm and let us think about what benefits there are in this. And try and be advocates of what the positivity is in the tax law. I think it's important for us to have a reviewed tax position, so that there's no more chaos. I remember coming here that I guess maybe like two sessions ago, when I was here, there was a lot of chaos in the foreign exchange market, and the fuel subsidy, inflation, and everything. And I insisted that the president stay the course. And I think that we begin to see the positivity around it. So
I remember the conversation too.
Let's just calm down and see how this plays out. But we need to appoint advisors to take us through.
Right, and I guess, at this point, we still have to watch it. I don't think we're out of the woods yet,
no.
When it comes to investor sentiment towards it. Even though for retail, you don't really have much to worry about.
Yes, because of the
for
threshold.
Retail investors, because of the threshold. But definitely for the institutional investors, and they're the ones that move the market, at this time. So from what we've seen so far, do you see any other policy that could cause jitters for investors?
Well, I guess, yes. We've also reviewed this week the 15% tax on petroleum.
Right.
That's pretty significant. And I think that there are so many dynamics that seem to happen around policy making. But I'm not in government, but I believe that the more sedate way to deal with this is to actually not rush. Not rush and not try to hog the limelight. or hog the headlines. You know, it's important to think through what you want to do so you don't have to reverse yourself constantly. You know, and I think that's one of the things that I have a challenge with this government about. Let's be calm. Let's think through very deeply what we're trying to do, rather than want to be the first to do something. You know, and that's how I see it.
Right, so we don't have to always, go back.
Exactly.
Almost like they call it the taco trade. Trump always chickens out kind of thing. Anyway, we'll continue the conversation. We'll find out what's playing out in the NASD. We'll take a quick break right now. When we come back, we unpack all of that. Just stay with us. This is Capital Market. All right, we're back now and still watching Capital Market live on Channels Television. All right, I still have Mr. Longa here as the Managing Director and CEO of NASD PLC. And we're going to be unpacking what has played out with the NASD Securities Index. So we see month to date, 0.34% down.
Yes.
Quarter to date, positive 4.13%. Year to date, 18.47%. So I guess it's also tracking what's playing out in the listed market.
Yes.
Although
to a certain
lagging.
degree. To a certain degree,
Right.
but NASD is slightly different from the listing market.
Right.
It's a dealer's market, and I think that the real essence of what has happened this year is the growth in the market. So we closed last year at 1.05 trillion. This year we're 2.19 trillion. What that says is that there have been new companies that have come onto the market, so that's where the real activity has happened. But yes, we're kind of below or approaching the inflation target. At least our market is 18.47.
Right.
The inflation target for government is 18. So I don't think we're doing too badly. But I think that the real story with NASD is diversification. There's quite a lot happening in that area. The SME side. We've been speaking about the digital securities, and we are at that point now, I can tell you. So we expect, we have a chestnut in the fire, and we think it's going to mature, it's going to be properly cooked, and we will serve it sometime in the week ahead or two.
Right.
So, and then we'll
you give us a little clue.
It's a commercial paper. And
okay.
then the commercial paper market on NASD is also beginning to gain momentum. So NASD is diversifying its focus. It's not just an equities, public unlisted equities anymore. And you know that what we've said is that we have styled NASD to be the foremost listing alternative exchange in Nigeria. So that's where we're going to. So all of that expansion is happening. We're talking, interestingly, on the digital securities side, with a possible gold offering. So when we speak about the gold offering that's come from Nigeria, you know what that is. I won't mention it here.
Right.
But there's one also brewing in the works.
It's quite interesting, seeing a lot of attention turning to gold.
Yes.
At this time, after hitting numbers we've not seen before.
Yes.
And, sometimes as an investor that's maybe late to the party, you feel like you're late to the party.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
And you don't want to get in on the top. At this point, we're talking about $4,200,
yes.
Per ounce,
yes.
At this time. So do you think investors will be keen on coming in now, to a gold offering on any platform?
I think that, okay, so let's start from what the experts say. I'm not an expert in gold, but I've tracked and I have listened to what the experts are saying, as well as the fact that there's a discussion of a listing on our markets, a possible listing on our markets. And they say that gold could go to $8,000, right? So why will gold go to 8,000? You see, there's a drive towards putting reserves in gold. You see that there is a contention on the BRICS side, on the conventional side, and then the alternative side, And people are wanting to move away from the more established currency. And in that wise, we would see that there would be a middle reference, which I think is going to go in the direction of gold. You know, a lot of national reserve policies are going in the direction of gold. You know, so there is probably going to be a drive towards buying more gold.
Right, I guess it's safe to say, gold did shine in 2025. And
We're hoping it will shine
that
further.
continues,
We hope it will shine
in 2020.
further.
So I know, before the previous sessions we've talked about, the youths in Nigeria getting more involved, in stock market, even on the listed market, and we're trying to get technology to drive them in because they love to, trade on their phones, sell quickly. Now we have the T+2,
yes.
Coming up,
Yes.
at this time. What are we seeing on the NASD on that front?
Well, I mean, the T+2 is very welcome, but I say that a digital securities market can actually be T+0. I mean, and so we're working in that direction, but on the interest of what I call the new investors, I think that their DNA is very different from what we see. They want to invest today, harvest tomorrow, and then they also want to trade with great liquidity. And of course, I mean, what presents that kind of opportunity for them is crypto that has no backing, right? But yes, I mean, if you've had an investment that has been growing for the last 10 years and it has continued to grow, you can
almost 1,000,000% up.
You can decide what really works for you,
right?
But I think that also there are young people who are also looking to build in a sustainable way. The heady days of youth will transit into the more sedate days of growing your career, growing your family, and all that. I mean, and I don't think that you'd be able to take the risk of, if you lose everything, you still have time to build. So there'd be a calmer period of how they would invest. And I think that people are looking for real world opportunities. And that's what tokenization would do, and that's what we're pursuing.
Right. And, a lot of talk about real-world assets, tokenization, blockchain technology, also coming into Nigeria's, capital market. So what are you seeing in 2026? Are we seeing more youth participation with the technology coming in?
I don't think it is because of technology that people will come in. I think technology is an enabler, right? So all of these stories about blockchain and tokenization, it's actually, there has to be a concept you're selling it on, right? And even crypto, the concept is that first and foremost, there's a narrow offering, and then there is a global demand, So if you have a narrow offering and a global demand, you'd have both liquidity and you'd have capital gains. And sometimes people will want to sweat their assets and take and harvest their gains, so it goes down. So it's really about the basic concept of investing. And I think that what we're going to see, and I hope what we see in 2026 is real sector growth. I think we need to improve some basic areas like transportation. I think if we were going to, I mean, we already spoke about the novel housing listing on the other markets.
Right.
We need to see those strategic gains. And those strategic gains will be powered by people who want to take ground floor opportunities and grow. So that's where we're going to see development next year.
Right.
And the base for that is macroeconomic stability.
Fantastic. Macroeconomic stability. All right. Definitely, we do hope things continue on the up.
Yes.
When it comes to asset classes and all of the investments that we make, but we want the macros to stay like inflation, go lower as much as you can. Naira, get stronger, hopefully. But thank you so much. It was great having this conversation with you, sir. Mr. Waride Longa is the Managing Director and CEO of NASD PLC. Thank you for sharing your weekend with us.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
All right, a quick story now before we leave. The Securities and Exchange Commission of Nigeria has teamed up with Cambridge University and digital assets provider Busha to launch a groundbreaking executive education program, and that's focused on digital assets. A 6-week online executive certificate in digital assets, innovation, industry, regulation, and compliance, designed to deepen capacity in blockchain. All right, that's the much we can take today. Thank you so much for watching. Definitely hope you've gotten some ground, going into the next trading week next week. Thanks for watching Capital Market. I'm Ladi Williams. Bye for now.